All right, so I actually made a video very similar to this 3 seasons ago, and I'm going to borrow some of that same data for this one, but I figured, hey, it's been a while since then. I'm sure we've all forgotten that video. If you haven't forgotten that video, credit to you. But yeah, I figured we can go over it again, and there's more data, so I added the new data into this. What we're going to do in today's video is discuss what do the numbers say about resting your starters versus playing your starters. We do get into a little bit of small sample size stuff here, and so, I'll factor that in when we get there. But yeah, let's look at the numbers. This is the past 12 years. And first, we're going to start off with if you have the 1 seed. The main team we're going to be talking about is the Kansas City Chiefs, right? That's kind of the decision they have to make. Should they rest their starters or should they play them? Well, what do the numbers say? So these are the numbers next to me for teams that played their starters the final game of the season. Sometimes they played their starters because they had to. They didn't have the 1 seed locked up, or sometimes they did but chose to. Either way, all are included. You see that if you play the starters in the final game of the season and then get the 1 seed, the odds of making the conference championship game, so winning in the divisional, making the conference championship game, are at 83.3%. To then make the Super Bowl are 72.2%. And to win the Super Bowl, you're looking at about 1/3. And keep in mind, it's somewhat frequent that teams that are in this situation play each other in the Super Bowl. That sometimes happens. So because of that, the numbers could never be 100% to win the Super Bowl, right? But still, odds are very good to make the Super Bowl. Odds are pretty good to win the Super Bowl if you play your starters. Now, for teams that rested their starters, there's actually not that many instances. Usually teams play their starters the final game of the season if they get a bye week, either because they don't want 2 weeks off or because they don't have the 1 seed clinched yet and have to find a way to clinch it. But in the 6 instances we have had in the past 12 years of a team resting their starters and then getting a bye week in the first round of the playoffs, the numbers are horrible. I mean, just straight up horrible. 3 times they've gone one and done. 2 times they've lost in the conference championship. They've only made the Super Bowl once, and they lost. That was the San Francisco 49ers last season. That's the one team to make the Super Bowl. And if you remember, they got off to really slow starts in both the Packers and the Lions games. They kind of had to win both of those games by the skin of their teeth. And the Packers game especially, Purdy didn't look great. So you have to kind of look at that and say it's probably not a great strategy to, if you have the 1 seed locked up like the Chiefs do, have that much time off. It's a real thing, right? Football is a game of rhythm and timing, and taking too much time off can mean that you have to kind of get back into football shape. There's a reason why Tom Brady always played in the preseason and also always played when they had playoffs locked up. So that's something you have to pay attention to. So for this alone, I know it's a small sample size. If I'm a Chiefs fan, I want to see Mahomes out there for at least a bit. I should mention, if you play for a half, I'm still including it as played. You don't have to play for the whole game. I think that's what you probably want to do. Play for a half, get him some football reps, but don't play him too long. You don't want to risk injury. So that's the 1 seed, but of course there are kind of 2 different dilemmas. There is the do you rest if you have the 1 seed locked up, and then do you rest if you don't have the 1 seed locked up, but have your other spot locked up. If you're locked into the 4 seed like the Houston Texans are, or the 2 seed like the Philadelphia Eagles are, do you just rest your starters because you're going to be playing next week regardless? Well, what did the numbers say about that? Well, first, this is something I decided to do 3 years ago, and I'm going to stick with it for this video. I had to determine which teams I was going to use. Am I going to use every single team, or am I just going to use some of them? I decided to just go with the 3 and 4 seeds, because those teams, in theory, have to upset a team to get to the conference championship game. They'll be favored in the first week and then underdogs in the second week. So because of that, I kind of wanted to see, how those teams did in particular. So it's 4, 3, and 4 seeds, but probably could work for any other seed. Those who didn't rest, meaning they played their starters the final game of the season and then made the playoffs the following week, and they were either a 3 seed or a 4 seed, those teams went one and done 44% of the time. They won, but then lost the next round 41.2% of the time, and did more than that, either made the conference championship or made the Super Bowl or won the Super Bowl 14.7% of the time. There is one asterisk in this data, which is last year's Detroit Lions I decided to exclude because they were the 3 seed, and they played their starters as well. However, because the Dallas Cowboys, who were the 2 seed, lost, and then the Lions ended up getting a home game and being favored the following week against Tampa Bay, I figured that kind of skews the data a little bit. It was designed to make teams kind of a similar situation, put them all together. So because of that, I excluded the Detroit Lions from the list. They did, of course, make the conference championship, would have counted in the more category. So that's worth mentioning. Meanwhile, the flip side, again, it's a small sample size. Just 9 teams have rested their starters and then gone on to play on Wild Card Weekend. Most teams don't rest their starters for the whole game at least. But you see that, so the one and done numbers are almost identical. You have a little bit better than 50% chance of winning the first round because you are a home team. That makes sense. However, these teams have a much better chance of doing more than just getting the first victory. In fact, last season, the team that won the Super Bowl did this. The Kansas City Chiefs rested their starters week 18 and then played them the following week, obviously, because it's the playoffs, went on to win the Super Bowl. So my philosophy is I kind of think that that's what I would do. If I'm a team who has the 1 seed locked up, I'm still playing my starters at least for a half the final game of the season. However, if I have a playoff spot locked up, but not the 1 seed, if I have the 2 seed locked up, then I don't have an issue resting my starters, letting everyone get healthy, because it doesn't really give you a clear, to me, it doesn't seem to give you a clear disadvantage week 1. And if it doesn't give you a clear disadvantage week 1 of the playoffs, well, then you're going to be fine week 2, and it helps keep your guys healthy. So it seems like NFL teams as a whole, they can take 1 week off and not really miss a beat. But if you take 2 weeks off, then then the rust starts to show. So for the Kansas City Chiefs this season, you have to factor in as well, the last time they played was on Christmas. So they would be like 25 days without football in between that and a playoffs game. You have to think that they probably should let Mahomes get some reps in there, or it could be trouble. Again, it is small sample size, but if the small sample size leans one way, I'm still more likely to lean that way, right? I mean, sure, I think case by case, you could decide, you know what, like we have the 1 seed locked up, but we're so injured, let's rest anyway. Okay, sure, I could understand a scenario like that. But for me, I think in the Kansas City Chiefs case, certainly, I would feel more comfortable, just being able to rest or playing your starters. Don't have to, be in a tough situation. Luckily for the Lions and Vikings, they got to play their starters anyway, so no dilemma there. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.